Welcome, everyone, to another edition of That's Football.
Hey, another great Tuesday night here in the My City, My Music studios. Of course, brought to you by the In the Zone Network here on, I guess My City, My Music studios, Soldier by Blood studios. Our man Tweezy handling everything for us on the production end. Crazy football weekend to recap. We also have a St. Louis Battlehawks event to kind of recap for everybody tonight as well. And we got a couple good guests for us. So, of course, a friend of the show, Ashley Baker, is going to join us again. Unfortunately, this time after a Cowboys loss, so hopefully she's not too upset by that. And then, of course, special guest Mike Patton of Torn AFC South podcast, as well as the Tennessee Tribune. He's going to join us, talk a little bit about that Jaguars Chiefs game, as well as the Titans' new GM hire. So we'll get Ashley on here in just a second. I guess we can kind of talk through Bills and Bengals here to start until she joins, but I think that's been kind of major topic football wise coming out of the weekend. Obviously, 49ers doing what they did to the Cowboys, notwithstanding. Joe Burrow kind of made himself a superstar if he wasn't already. Made himself a superstar again this weekend. Great quote of getting those refunds for the folks in Atlanta, but we'll get to that game a little bit later now that Ashley's going to join us here.
Yes.
All right, so of course, friend of the program, Ashley Baker, joining us once again here on another wonderful Tuesday night, and that's football. Ashley, we gave you the floor last time after a Cowboys win. It was a lot of trash talking going on. It was a lot of celebrating. Now, of course, opposite spectrum. We got to give you the floor again. Just go ahead, and tell us raw emotions. You a couple days removed now. Just tell us how you feeling, man. How is it? How you dealing with the loss on Sunday?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. You can hear me, right? I'm
Yeah,
good.
you good.
Hear you and see
Perfect.
you.
Hey guys. So disappointed, of course, is the first thing that comes to mind. Disappointment. I don't really know. I am one that is lost for words. I'm usually not this lost for words, but I'm disappointed. I feel like we could have been much more prepared, in the sense of when players go down. I feel like once Tony Pollard went down, that completely changed like the mood of the team.
Yep.
Because obviously they built most of the game plan around him, which was something I feel like that they shouldn't have done. But outside of that, it felt bad yesterday morning. It's always bad the morning after.
Yeah.
It's only better morning after. But outside of that, man, I'm good. On to the off season, man. Getting my mock draft board ready, and
Yeah, well, no. So, of course, 1912 lost to the 49ers on Sunday. A lot of the commentary coming out of the game, of course, is about Dak.
yes,
I guess let me just go straight to it. Is Dak the quarterback to get Dallas over the hump? Yes or no?
he can be. Dak can be that guy. Um, I feel like it's some since he's joined the squad. I feel like that there hasn't he's a quarterback. First of all, he's a fourth round draft pick. Okay, let me
Right.
just put that out there. Okay, so he has definitely exceeded expectations being a fourth round draft pick, being in the eye of the storm that is the Dallas Cowboys organization. Okay, the Dallas Cowboys franchise. So that's the first thing. So he certainly has exceeded the expectations. That's number one. Number two, I kind of feel like that Dak has never really. He's the type of quarterback that really needs to have everything semi perfect.
Yep.
And so what I mean by that is um, the defense was great last year. It wasn't what it was this year, though. That continuity and the trust that those players have for one another on the defense made the defense way better than it was last year. So he didn't have. I mean, the defense was great. It could have been better last year. And then this year he comes in. The wide receiving core is not what it's supposed to be. Prior to the last 2 years, though, we may have had an outstanding offense, but the defense was never on point.
Yeah.
The coaching has never been above average. There needs to be so many parts working for it to be successful for Dak Prescott. There needs to be competent coaching. There needs to be an incredible defense. He needs to have plenty of weapons around the field. because he's just that quarterback. He's not a Patrick Mahomes. He's not a Joe Burrow. He's not these guys where you don't. They could probably get it done lacking a ton of things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Patrick Mahomes has won a Super Bowl lacking a great defense. You know what I mean? We see these guys doing that stuff, and Dak just kind of need a whole lot of stuff to fall in line for him, y'all. So y'all try to get me to throw my quarterback under the bus. No. He
Look,
can be that.
You did the right thing. You stood by him.
Hey, just to make you feel better, it could be worse. You could be a Giants fan.
This is very true. You could.
Oh yeah, that's very true. I could be a Giants fan. I could be a Commanders fan. It could be very nasty.
Well, I meant after what the Giants had to go through with the Eagles last weekend, dear Lord.
Yeah.
Now that game was over in the first half.
I mean, you could probably even stretch that to the first quarter, but
yeah, I don't know why people had high hopes for that game. To be honest, I guess people were having recency bias and kind of forgot what what the Eagles did to the Giants in the first part of the season.
Right.
I don't like using divisional games as a measuring stick. I absolutely hate it. That's been like my theme this year. So to use that final game as a measuring stick to where the Eagles were, instead of using their season in its totality was crazy to me. I had a really bad feeling midday that this was going to be a blowout kind of game, and that it came to be.
Well, and that's, we kind of saw it play out on both days where usually when you get to this stage of the playoffs where you have, 2 games one day, 2 games the next, one of those 2 games each day is usually kind of the nail biter, and the other one is usually like, okay, this is over as soon as the game starts. And sure enough, we got our semi-nail biter with Chiefs-Jags, and then throw everything out the window with the Eagles. 5 minutes in, they were scoring 2 touchdowns. So
the thing about the Jaguar game that's super weird is this is just audio, right, guys?
Yeah.
Great. I was scratching my eye. I just didn't.
No, you're fine.
You're fine.
The thing about that Jags Chiefs game was that obviously we hate the Mahomes injury, right?
Right.
But I just feel like you call me Dallas bias if you want, okay? I feel like every team get up for the Cowboys, but when it's time to get up for the teams that you ain't supposed to have no chance against, you don't get up for those teams. Yeah. So we saw Doug Peterson pulling tricks out the hat when they played the Cowboys. Where were those same tricks with a hobbled Patrick Mahomes? I mean, I'm listening to the guys that I do my sports show with. That's Dave Butler, a.k.a. Young Heavy, and Mark Gunnels. And, specifically – Young Heavy was like, hey, these are the guys I do my Sports After Dark show with on Twitter. Specifically him, he's saying to me, I don't understand why they're not doubling Kelsey and why they're not blitzing Mahomes. He's out there hobbled. You have to bring some pressure on him. He didn't get pressured the entire game, and he was on one leg.
Yeah.
But you didn't pull out the tricks in the hat for that. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could have, simply because Mahomes couldn't be Superman, that was a winnable game.
Well, and I think, the other parts of that is as soon as Mahomes had to take his cape off, Travis Kelce kind of put it on. And again, like you said,
somebody had to.
For whatever reason, they decided not to double Kelce, and he proceeded to torch them for everything.
And it came to real like, oh yeah, Chad Henne still plays in the NFL.
Right.
Collecting them checks, man. Collecting them checks. So
I mean, people were saying why Chad shouldn't have came in. Listen, I'm not mad if the medical staff cleared him to come in. I'm not mad at him coming in and playing. That's what they paid him for. Right. He's the face of the franchise, and obviously he knows his guys and how things can change very quickly psychologically if he's not in the game. That's for most quarterbacks, right? They're just that big of a deal for their teams. So I'm not mad that he came in. I'm not mad at the notion of not inserting Chad Henne. I'm more pissed off with excuse my language. I'm more pissed off with the Jaguars. Like, y'all, if it wasn't no time, it was that time. And I think that I think a team like the Bengals are certainly going to take advantage of that.
Well, and so you kind of led me right to it. Of course, we know Mahomes is going to be hobbled come Sunday. Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals looked every bit of fantastic in their game. Is it going to be another Bengals AFC Championship win, or do you think the Chiefs can win despite the Mahomes injury?
I think that the Chiefs, that's such a toss-up for me, y'all. I feel like, listen, they're 3-0. They're walking in there with incredible confidence. They've won an Arrowhead before. That's not something that they're afraid of. I it's a tough one, y'all. It's a tough one because Patrick Mahomes is kind of entering into that Brady territory where you don't really want to bet against him.
Right.
Like you don't bet against Mahomes. But Joe Burrow, man, I mean, he's entering into his second AFC Championship game within his first 3 years, man. He's nothing to blink at.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the underdog. I'm going with the Bengals.
Well, so I actually was going to mention that line to you too, because now the Bengals, according to Vegas, they're the favorites, and so that line I saw it. I looked because I'm trying to get
Did
back
that
into my
change or was that always the case?
Well, so it opened up. The Bengals were 2.5-point underdogs. As of this afternoon, when I checked, they were 1.5-point favorites. So that
my
that
goodness,
line
it
has
switched.
moved. Yeah, that line has moved like crazy, and so for me,
what does Vegas know? That's the question I want to know.
Well,
Correct.
I think part of that is them adjusting the line because of the Mahomes injury, but it's hard for me to not take advantage of the Chiefs being underdogs at home.
Yeah, and
I feel like that you don't want to give them that extra bit of motivation. I don't know what kind of special shots they can
bets,
give.
y'all,
Right.
I'm taking the Chiefs. I might be taking the Chiefs on the spread.
I think just off the strength of them being underdogs at home, you kind of got to go for it.
yeah.
Now that I don't like.
Well, you have to, and here's the thing you have to count to. This will be the 5th straight year the AFC Championships in KC. Of course, it would have been interesting if the Bills did win, how that neutral site game would have gone, though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think that was just an experiment because who knows? Next few years, all the conference champions game might be a neutral site. Oh boy.
So
that's crazy. I didn't know that the line moved.
Now, I do want to get back to the NFC really quickly because, of course, you being a Cowboys fan, you've obviously seen Philly twice this regular season.
Correct.
You've now seen the 49ers here in the playoffs. We got to get your prediction based on what you've seen and how the Cowboys have had to deal with both of these teams. Who do you think is going to be the victorious team between the two on Sunday?
Again, I don't really like using divisional games as a measuring stick. So I know that our games between them, So I'm gonna kind of just go based off what I've seen from Philly all year. I'm gonna kind of exclude us, right? Obviously they have weapons. Jalen Hurts has gotten better as a passer. They have the run game in Miles Sanders, and their defense has been pretty dope. Like their defense has been really good. Having said that, I don't believe that the 49ers and that rookie with Brock Purdy has seen a defense like the one they just saw in us on Sunday. Okay. And they still found a way to win the game. That defense is no joke. They're physical, and they have the capacity and the capability to limit at least 2 dimensions of that Phillies offense.
Yeah.
They could shut down the run game, and that comes in the form of Miles Sanders and probably putting somebody on Jalen Hurts as a spy. Philly has the better secondary, so but I still think that the 49ers secondary is competent enough to keep some folks in check. Right. You know what I mean? This is Jalen Hurts' second start in the playoffs, man. You know what I mean? So he's only won 1 playoff game. Brock Purdy has won 2, respectfully.
Right.
So I would just be crazy to just go against what I have seen from the 49ers, y'all. Like I can't do it. I can't have been witness to it all year. They averaged allowing 16 points a game with every team. I mean, the only team they really got blown out by was the Chiefs, and that's because, if I have to be honest, that was because that was McCaffrey's first game.
Yep.
And they were just getting players back from injury. I knew that game was going to go crazy for them because folks weren't injured. Now you're talking about a settled-in Christian McCaffrey. They're on a streaker. Their defense is lit. They're physical, man, and they tear you up so bad in the first half. And then come the second half, you're so worn out. That's when they really start to impose their will. I've seen it all season. I saw it happen against us. That offensive line completely started to dominate our defense in the middle of the third quarter. Yeah. And I think my team has a pretty decent front. Probably not to the level of the Eagles, but I just still think the physicality, and they play physical too. It's going to be tough. They at the link, they're in a hostile environment. But if I had to give one thing that would probably differentiate or make it just cut it all for me, it's probably the coaching. I trust Kyle Shanahan more than I trust Nick Sirianni.
Ooh, okay.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay. Now, because, of course, taking coaching
just talking it out with y'all real
Yeah.
quick made me realize how even it can be. It can be very even. So if I had the determining factor for me is I'm gonna make it coaching.
Well, and I think for me, even throwing out the regular season, right? Just
Yeah.
looking at the 2 games that we saw each of them play this weekend.
Yeah.
Granted, Philly looked great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's a little bit of happy to be here with the Giants.
Exactly.
Where, Jalen Hurts, yes, he played well, but he also didn't take a lot of hits in that game on Saturday. He didn't have to, deal with Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, getting, spied on by Fred Warner, which, quick note, I don't know if anybody paid attention to this, but there was a play on Sunday in that Cowboys 49ers game where I saw Fred Warner get lined up in the slot with CeeDee Lamb. And he went stride for stride down the field with CeeDee Lamb and swatted the ball away. And it was at that moment there where I said, that man is a mutant. I do not want to have to be on the other side of him on an offense. And I think that's going to propose a nice little, wrinkle for their defense against Jalen Hurts, because when you can keep somebody like that spying on him, not only somebody that can be physical with him, but somebody that can run and kind of keep him in check, that takes a lot of what Philly does best away. So I think I got to go San Fran, man. It's hard for me to put my faith behind Brock Purdy and, a 7th-round pick, but at the same time, he's stepping into a much better situation than even a lot of first-round picks step into.
Yeah.
McCaffrey,
Yeah.
Kittle, Debo, Brandon Ayuk, one of the best offensive lines in football, one of the best defenses, period, in football, let alone front sevens. Everything is coming up 49ers for me, man.
And with the combination of Warner and then also Bosa on the defense, it's kind of hard to choose against the 49ers. And I don't know, there's been a lot more upsets than I thought for this playoffs this year, to be quite frank.
And also, Ashley, to your point as well, on the coaching front, Kyle Shanahan, this is now 3 NFC championship games in 4 years. Nick Sirianni, he hasn't been here before. Jalen Hurts has not been here before. Granted, Brock Purdy hasn't either, but a lot of those 49ers guys have. That pedigree, that experience. I understand it's hostile territory in Philly. I get it. But, we've also seen other teams go into Philly and win. I don't think the home field advantage is going to be so much more, in their favor than what we actually are going to have to see on the field. And I think, 49ers, they just got a little bit more that I like in terms of making a prediction. So I think that's the side I'm leaning towards.
No, I'm with that.
So
I agree.
Now, of course, we gotta ask you a couple more questions about your Cowboys. Unfortunately, going into next season, obviously there's some changes that are probably going to have to be made. One of the main changes that are is kind of being rumored right now is Zeke. Do you see Zeke being in a Cowboys uniform next year, or is that finally going to be the time where they hand things over to Tony Pollard, unfortunately for him, coming off an injury?
I believe that, Zeke, there are reports that he's willing to take a pay cut to stay. So, perhaps we'll see him. I'm not 100% sure. I really don't know, y'all. Everything is so. I'm an organization girl. I'm a team girl. I try not to have favorite players, to be honest with y'all. Yeah. I'm about who's about bringing my team some wins and a championship ultimately, right? So I had to put my money on it, man. Just because of the emergence of Tony Pollard and the fact that he is so good, and you could probably get a running back something like Zeke, but at a cheaper price where they could combine in that backfield. Again, unless Zeke takes the pay cut, I don't see why we wouldn't go that route. Right. So perhaps we will see him in a different uniform next year.
Yeah, that's gonna kind of be. It's kind of sad to see, man. Zeke went from like electrifying, eating out of the the Salvation Army Bowl in the stadium, like, all of that stuff. And then now it's just like, he's almost run out of town. And so, speaking of run out of town, we also need to ask, we asked you about your loyalty to Dak. What about Mike McCarthy? Do you think he's safe, or is it, we need to go ahead and see what Sean Payton talking about?
I think Mike McCarthy is safe. I think my organization has very loyal to his people that's loyal to him. He don't push back if they don't push back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he hasn't given me any evidence that winning has anything to do with why he let folks go. Because when folks is winning, he still let them go. So he hasn't shown me anything different. He kept Jason Garrett way too long, and I don't see why that would be different with McCarthy. He's not disobedient. He is an insubordinate. They love him down there. So I don't see why he wouldn't be back. I don't see it. And him and Sean Payton are really good friends. I don't know. First of all, Sean is going to want to run things his own way. But I also don't see them kind of, maybe they don't really want to step into those waters because of the friendship.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. It could end up going sour. I mean, they're like really cool. So Mike McCarthy is going to be back. My owner already said that he was not on the hot seat. I don't have any other evidence outside of that.
Right. Well, one person I probably think is probably on the hot seat, almost out the door, is your kicker Brett Maher. So.
Yeah.
My heart was pretty bad, man.
It got a little ugly for him. To the point where you celebrating him making a 25-yard field goal. It's like, damn, like we really are down bad at this point.
Do you think Coach Fossil's job is in jeopardy for special teams coach for the Dallas Cowboys?
I don't think so. Our special teams are decent. I think that was just a really bad game for Brett Maher. And a lot of things that people aren't taking into account is that perhaps it was the grass, you know what I mean? In Tampa. In Tampa. He had the problems in Tampa. Yeah. Perhaps it was the grass in Tampa that kind of threw him off. Our stuff is turf. And he missed 3 field goals the entire season. I planned on going back and being interested in seeing where did he miss those and what stadiums? It wasn't on grass.
Well, and not to mention, in that blowout beating that y'all gave the Vikings, he made 2 60-yarders indoors. So, he's been on kind of both ends of the extremes.
Yep. Yeah, I know. So I really don't know. I don't know. Maybe a fresh new kick up in there might help.
Yeah.
Could be.
So, we've heard you pick San Francisco. We've heard you give a little bit of an underdog endorsement to Kansas City. If that is the matchup, who are you going with to win the Super Bowl this year?
You said the Niners in Kansas City?
Niners in Kansas, or you could do Niners and Bengals too.
I'll say this. Face each other. I kind of like that matchup a bit better, to be quite honest.
It's a little bit more fun.
I'll say this. Whoever wins the NFC Championship will be the Super Bowl champions. It does not matter who they play.
Okay.
And I am of the mindset that there is not a defense that can stop the 49ers offense and their weapons over in the AFC.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that each team, the offense for the Eagles as well, neither team has a defense. And I don't feel like either team in the Bengals or the Chiefs, I feel like the defenses of the NFC teams can hold up.
Yeah.
I really feel like that. I feel like that probably it's going to be somebody from the NFC, y'all. I don't see any AFC team beating either one of those teams, man. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be real reminiscent of the Bills of the 90s if the Bengals go back to the Super Bowl and lose again. We're going to start having a little bit of that comparison, that parallel. It's hard for me to bet against the 49ers also, but after what I saw Sunday, it's also a little bit difficult for me to bet against Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm. I feel that.
Because, I mean, my man is out here throwing the ball and spinning in the snow. He, telling people to go get their refunds down in Atlanta. He got all the swag right now. It's hard, man. It's hard. So I think overall I'm gonna go with Cincy. You probably can't see me actually, but I'm in here in the orange and black, Nike pullover. So I'm kind of showing my hand a little bit. But I think Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow's the Super Bowl MVP. And I think that's just how we're gonna go. I'm gonna let it play out, see how it happens. If I'm wrong, I'll take it. But right now, after what I saw this weekend, I can't bet against Joe, man. I can't do it.
Okay.
Can't do it. So we'll definitely leave it at that. Ashley, as always, pleasure speaking with you. Always great to have you. Tell everybody again where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys for having me on. And yes, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Ashley Baker _21, ASHLEYBAKER _21. You can find our exclusive Twitter spaces, Sports After Dark on Twitter. Handle is Sports A as in after dark _. Make sure you tap into my podcast as well, About Nothing But Sports. It can be found on Apple, Spotify, Google, and iHeartRadio.
All right, and so, just as a quick note before you go to, I will have to join your space at some point just to talk trash on Paul George, but we'll save that for another day.
Lord.
We'll save that for another day.
Yeah. Whatever. PG-13 Ash is definitely loading since the Cowboys is out. I ain't got no football to talk, but PG-13 Ash is definitely loading. Yeah, so you make sure you jump in there. Pow.
We got you. So until next time, Ashley, thank you. It was definitely a pleasure having you again.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Okay, let me.
Hey man, so of course another fun conversation with our friend Ashley. It's crazy though, man. I'm thinking about that 49ers and Cowboys game as we kind of talked through it.
Yeah.
It really gave you an old school football feel though.
Well, if you remember last week, I put down the old-fashioned because when you think of like the top matchup for old school, Niners versus Cowboys is number one, and then number two, even though it's a divisional rivalry, Bears and Packers.
Yeah, especially for the NFC. And so, I thought about that. They were showing all the old, Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, obviously Steve Young, Jerry Rice, also, Troy Aikman. They showing all
Emmitt Smith,
all of the greats on both sides. Of course, Jerry Rice was at the game,
Landry,
which of course Jerry Rice also wearing that just outstanding chain at the game. The one with the 49ers helmet that got GOAT on the helmet bottom, man. Like, hey. Everything I need to see.
That reminds me, do you think they'll ever bring back head coaches wearing suits on the sidelines?
No.
Nope.
No, as a matter of fact, I think we are going to go the absolute other way. It is going to get more and more casual the longer we go. I mean, just think about it. We kind of joked about the NBA with Ashley. But if you notice, the NBA, they don't require their coaches to wear suits anymore. So a lot of them are wearing pullovers like this with like team logos and stuff on them. It's going to get real casual.
I believe college still does, depending on the school.
Depending on the school. But to be quite honest, this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I almost would prefer my head coach on the football team not to wear a suit. You're not comfortable on the sideline for 3 hours in that suit.
Oh, I know. I kind of just want to do, like, if they ever do a retro thing, it's especially for the Packers, just wear what the Lombardi wore back then.
Yeah, carrying around the paper that's rolled up, hitting his hands with it.
The fedora hat.
Yeah, that would, you just got to.
Coat, now that.
So I got an idea for us. What they need to do, NFL, come talk to us. We'll give this idea to you. We'll put a nice price on it and everything. Wrap it up real nice for you. But they need to do something. They do a Hall of Fame game every year in the preseason. Part of that, they need to do a throwback game where it's throwback uniforms, but also coaches got to go a little throwback too. Throw on your best suit, go up and down the sideline, figure it out. But we need some kind of throwback aesthetic.
Give like a 50s, 60s, 70s feel or something back then. Though we'll actually speak about Patton here later in the show in another topic.
Oh yeah. So
before our next guest come on, trying to do a little bit more of a clean house with the sponsors.
Oh, yes. So, of course, we mentioned show is brought to you by the In the Zone Network, of course, here at the My City, My Music Studios. As we always mention, want to also give a big shout out to the World Bird Sanctuary, worldbirdsanctuary.org. You can donate not only to help support the birds at their facility, but also to any bird-related causes here throughout the world. Also, with that, of course, we saw Carter Hawk join our program here a few weeks back. He, as well as the rest of his kettle, looking to fly at the Battlehawks games here this spring. Of course, we got a few weeks before that first home opener for the Battlehawks.
About 2 months.
Well, yeah. So closer to 2 months. But at that time, of course, we want Carter to be able to fly around in the dome, get those fans riled up. I'm talking just full voice, as loud as we can be in that dome, that all the other visiting teams know that Carr is basically the king of all animals here in the XFL. So hashtag let him fly, Twitter, Instagram, whatever social media you like, hashtag let him fly. Also, Call the Hawk on Twitter. Of course, follow his exclusive Twitter page where he's got some pretty funny videos and posts that he makes from time to time.
Let's also not mention, since Carl is the king, his second in command, basically his hand, if you will.
Yeah, the hand of the
Mohawk, and Mohawk actually has his own name. It's now official. It's now called the Mohawk Tailgating.
Oh, yeah.
Right by the Great Baptist Church, Grace. I'm sorry, not Grace Baptist. I think it's the Great Baptist Church. It's the Baptist Church right by the dome, held by Pastor Jonathan. Hold on, I need to double check his name because I know I have his name with the pastor here. Excuse me. I know I have it here. I know I have it here. Yep. I had it. Excuse me for a moment. Sorry for the delay, ladies and gentlemen.
No problem, man. And then, of course, as Will is looking for that, as we mentioned here earlier in the show, again, give a big thanks to Ashley Baker for joining us. We will also have Mike Patton of the Torn AFC South podcast.
Pastor Jonathan Davis.
There we go. He's going to be joining us.
Why did I forget the name? That's also the same name of the lead singer of Korn.
You know, it's always putting two and two together after the fact sometimes, man. It's okay. It's all right. So, before Mike gets on, of course, we were kind of talking through Bills and Bengals a little bit here. I do have to say, I gave Joe Burrow, his praise, and obviously, like I said, I'm wearing the orange and black right now just because I think the Bengals might have themselves one. On the other side of that game, I think Josh Allen just got his spot taken by Joe Burrow. And by his spot, I mean, we were in that comparison of, the best quarterbacks in the league, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, whatever. I think Joe Burrow has officially put his name at number 2 right now. And, I mean, judging by his record against Patrick Mahomes, there's an argument for him to be number 1. I'm not going to go as far as, Dan Orlovsky did on ESPN here earlier this week saying he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Definitely not going to go that far just yet. But I definitely think it's him and Mahomes and then everybody else as opposed to as opposed to Josh Allen and Mahomes and everybody else now.
Yeah. Think about with the quarterback hierarchy here, of course. Question here, is this Tom Brady's last year?
It should be.
If he wants to save his marriage, it should be.
Well, I mean, I think that ship has sailed, to be quite honest. To me, it's not even about the off-the-field stuff. I think for me, very clearly, he didn't want to take any hits by the time we got to that playoff game against Dallas. Maybe that was because he knew that his team didn't have it. Maybe that was because he just genuinely did not want to take the hit. Either way, you can't play football and not want to take hits, quarterback or not. And so, also, what else does Tom Brady need to prove to us? If Tom Brady were to go out here and go to an 11th Super Bowl and win an 8th, he's still going to be the same GOAT that we call him now. Nobody's going to think of his legacy any different. We're going to continue to give him all the praise for his greatness. Nothing is going to change. If he goes out next year at 45, 46 years old and starts getting his head taken off, we don't want to see that, man. We don't want to have him out there, battling no injuries or taking no unnecessary punishment, all because what you trying to find, and especially we don't even know if he's gonna go back to the Buccaneers. Like, you gonna go to a new team again at 46 years old?
Well, let's see here. There's a chance the Ravens might need a quarterback, depending on a few things. The Jets, that's a huge question mark.
I mean, if we just lay out all the Tom Brady's options, right?
Indy's still an option.
I mean, one, if you're Tom Brady, do you want to live in Indianapolis? Two, the Jets, you can say they're a quarterback away, but, I always have the thought of, it's very easy for a team to perform well as the underdog or the team that nobody believes in. It's a lot harder to exceed or meet expectations when the expectations are high. That Jets team is young, man. They still got a lot to learn. They were great this year. But adding Tom Brady to that team, there's going to be like Super Bowl expectations. I don't think just because you add Tom Brady to the Jets that they're better than the Chiefs, that they're better than the Bengals. They probably aren't the best team in their division because you still got Buffalo to contend with, and depending on the quarterback situation for Miami, you got them too. Mm-hmm. Raiders, same thing. You gonna go to the same division as Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert at 46 years old, Tom Brady? I don't know. I don't really see the option for him that jumps off the page like, okay, this is definitely where you're going to go and be in a better situation than what you were last year, or in a situation that allows you to contend for a Super Bowl. Because if it's not about contending for a Super Bowl, then what are you doing it for at that age?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because now we're going to talk about, like, some quarterbacks are going to be leaving, and then some are coming in from this draft, and as of right now, we don't know what the Bears are going to do with that first pick. Stay?
No, my guess is that they would trade down. I just don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of teams that we probably aren't thinking of at this very moment that would be willing to trade up. One team that comes to mind is the Colts. We know they need a quarterback. Obviously, Matt Ryan was not it. Sam Ehlinger was not it. We've heard them linked to, like, Derek Carr. But I think if they are going to really go and do this right, just go draft your quarterback. Mm-hmm. And, trading up to one might come with a bit of a hefty price tag, but at the same time, for sure, whichever quarterback you like, whether it's Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, I don't think they'd be trading up to number one to get Anthony Richardson from Florida. But if you like those other three quarterbacks, right, I think you gotta go and get your guy.
All right, looks like we're going to get our second guest here this evening.
All right. So joining us now from the 20 AFC South podcast as well as the Tennessee Tribune, Mike Patton. Thank you for joining the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all, man. So, of course, we will definitely, jump in to recap the Jaguars and Chiefs divisional round game here on Saturday. A game that ended up being a lot closer than what we probably would have expected going into, or some people would have expected. Jaguars kind of having a shot at it late, based on that Patrick Mahomes injury. I guess, Mike, just from you covering the division as a whole, talk to me a little bit about just the growth, even going into that game, just the growth that you saw from Jacksonville, in this playoff game compared to where they were at the beginning of the season.
Well, let me start at the beginning of the year. You weren't sure what to expect from the Jaguars. I mean, you have Doug Peterson coming in, you have Trent Baalke, his past with the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah. We're not going to talk about that here. But, that relationship was interesting, and that no one knew how that relationship was going to work. But we knew that Doug Peterson was going to be a guy that can help a quarterback, that can actually groom a quarterback, and actually help the quarterback see things how they need to be seen on the field in terms of growing. And at the beginning of the year, it looked like Trevor was kind of have moments where he would grow, and then other moments where it would just be like a fumble or an interception or something like that. So as the season went on, he kind of got, more and more consistent. And then, of course, they hit that winning streak. And that's when he probably played his most consistent football. And along with that, you had the wide receivers and Zay Jones and Christian Kirk, who might have had a 1,000-yard season, and a lot of people who were dogging his contract probably had to eat a lot of crow.
Yeah, for sure.
So, he had a great season, and then Evan Ingram had a career season as well. So as Trevor grew, the offense grew. Travis Etienne, which I thought it was a bad trade at the time, trading James Robinson, but it ended up being a great trade for them because Etienne stepped in and did great. And then defensively, I mean, they've had their ups and downs there. Olaquan has been fantastic. I mean, he's the NFL tackles leader.
Yep.
He was, again, the second straight year, different conference, didn't matter. And and just the growth, guys like Tyson Campbell, and they kind of grew as well defensively. So that team kind of grew and figured things out, and the defensive coordinator kind of figured out a little bit more what all his pieces could do a little bit more down the stretch. At the beginning of the season, it just looked like he kind of was trying to figure out how to use all these parts he had. But at the end of the year, you could tell he kind of had figured it out. That Tyson Campbell do his thing. Griffin, we don't need him. He can sit out, do whatever he wants to do. And then you got, the big guys up front, which, of course, they didn't necessarily show everything in sack numbers, but they did get pressures on quarterback, which they were one of the top teams in the NFL doing so.
Yeah, for sure. And so you had, of course, pressure on Mahomes. Didn't get to maybe finish that game out the way that they probably envisioned. But I guess, coming out of this game now, they've shown that they can kind of handle the fire a little bit, basically playing 2 playoff games in a row, the game to end the regular season against Tennessee and then following that up with the comeback against the Chargers. What is going to be the expectation for this team now going into next year, maybe being able to take another leap on top of the leap that they took this year?
Well, the expectation is going to be to win the AFC South again. I mean, honestly, looking at the teams around them, you don't know what the Colts are going to be because, you don't know the quarterback situation. You don't know the coaching situation. As far as the Titans, they had a down year. They still have Derrick Henry, but you don't know what all else is going to be there. The Jeffrey Simmons question is still looming, along with the David Long Jr. question and the quarterback question. So a lot of different questions, a lot of moving parts potentially there. And Houston is Houston. You're still trying to figure out what they're going to be. So as far as Jacksonville, the expectation is to win the conference. And, with Calvin Ridley coming aboard next year and Marvin Jones being a free agent, probably not being there next year, you're going to be better at the wide receiver position. So, it's going to be interesting to see all of who they're able to keep in terms of the free agents and who they're actually going to let go or bring in as well. Because, Evan Ingram's a huge free agent for them because he only signed to a 1-year deal. So that's going to be something to watch for sure.
Yeah, and of course, turned out to be a pretty nice safety blanket for Trevor Lawrence here as the season continued on. And so you mentioned, the rest of the division. Go to the Titans for a second. Of course, they have been in the news recently making the first black GM hire that they've had in franchise history in Rand Carthen from the 49ers. From what you can tell so far, what is that going to mean as far as their roster construction going into next season?
Well, the biggest word that was used in the press conference was collaboration. Collaboration. It was used a lot. But just kind of want to reiterate that point a little bit. But as far as the work between Rand Carthen and Mike Vrabel, they're definitely going to work together in terms of building this roster. The thing is, they want to make the roster faster. They want to be one of the faster teams in the NFL. That's one of the things that Mike Vrabel's talked about. And I think Rand Carthen has the acumen to make that happen. Remember, he would have had to play the hand in a lot of the different draft picks between the 49ers and the Rams over the years. Think about those different draft picks. I mean, you got to think about Brock Purdy. He had a hand in that. You got to think about maybe a Juwan Jennings, a 7th-round draft pick out of Tennessee. Now he's a 3rd wide receiver for the 49ers, a consistent one as well. I mean, all the different pieces that have added to that team, he probably had a hand in. So you got to think he's got a pretty good eye for talent and pretty good acumen for building a roster, even though he wasn't the general manager. So, with him and Vrabel, I definitely think the biggest thing is going to be find pieces that fit to what you want to do, and then find pieces that want to fit towards your future as well. Because we know that Derrick Henry, even though he is a massive, massive guy, and he's a great running back, he's not going to last forever. So you're going to have to at least transition that offense to where it can be a little bit more balanced, at least to, kind of limit the wear and tear on him, or, go to more of a passing offense. And when eventually Derrick Henry isn't here anymore, which, a lot of Titans fans don't want to hear. But, here's the thing. He's a free agent, I believe, after this contract. After if after the 2024, I think he'll be a free agent because he's on the last year of his deal. So either they extend him or he goes into his last year and becomes a free agent. So, you have to prepare yourself for that offense post Derrick Henry or post dominant Derrick Henry.
Well, and I guess to mention they got a little bit of a question at quarterback too. There's some speculation that they may move on from Ryan Tannehill. I believe he's also set to be a free agent come 2024 as well. They didn't really get what they probably thought they could have gotten out of Malik Willis, as evident by them starting Josh Dobbs in the final game of the regular season. What, I guess, do you think they do at the quarterback position? Do they decide to turn back to Tannehill, or do they maybe try to look at getting another bridge to either a Willis or another young quarterback down the line?
Well, here's the thing when it comes to Willis. A lot of people were saying that they were disappointed in Willis and things like that, but that actually wasn't the case. The thing is that they knew Malik Willis was going to take time. The thing with Malik Willis, he comes from a one-read offense at Liberty and goes into an offense where you have to read multiple different things. And then plus, you don't have necessarily the greatest weapons at different spots in terms of speed and accuracy and, those different things. So, it wasn't necessarily set up for him to succeed anyway. The reason why Josh Dobbs succeeded and actually was there is because Josh Dobbs has been in the league 6 years. He's seen a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So he's going to obviously have the advantage there. So that's where I wanted to kind of, just kind of give you a little bit of perspective there. They're not giving up on Malik. They didn't expect a ton. They just expect him to come in and be an all pro or anything like that. But they did, they do expect a progression from him though. So next year, I will say that more than likely Malik will be here. I don't see him going anywhere. I also, Josh Dobbs, I can see him signing and still being here. And here's the kicker that everyone else may be missing. There might be a chance that Ryan Tannehill is still here too. Okay. And then also, here's the thing. They might actually extend him. Here's the reason why you extend him. Because when you extend him, you lower his cap hit. So if you lower his cap hit, you give more space to have more pieces around the team. They're in the similar situation with Robert Woods. Robert Woods has a contract coming up next year. And, they could cut him or they could bring him back and lower his cap number. So a couple different situations you could do to actually create cap space, for a guy like a Jeffrey Simmons or a David Long Jr., as well as add different pieces. They will more than likely cut Zach Cunningham, but but there are and Taylor Lewan more than likely as well. But there will be other, there will be cap space created to more than likely keep Jeffrey Simmons and David Long Jr. depending on the number, because David Mugeta, I think, is his agent in terms of David Long Jr., and he's not going to get shortchanged.
No, not at all. Not at all. If his previous contracts that he's helped negotiate are any indication, definitely not going to be a cheap number by any means at all. Nope. So, wanted to also shift gears really quickly to the Texans. We obviously saw them win their way out of the number one pick here to end the season. Have you heard any rumblings about them, kind of being concerned about being at number 2 rather than number 1? Is that something that they're okay with? Or what's kind of the thought process going into the offseason for them, as we also know that they're looking to get a quarterback in this draft?
Their thought process is, let's get the best player. That's what you're probably going to hear out of Nick Caserio. You're probably not going to hear him tip his hand or anything of that nature. So, as far as a quarterback, that'll be probably more deciding on who the head coach is. Mike Kafka got brought back for a second interview. The defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos, another coach gets brought back for a second interview. So, depends upon who the coach is. I think that'll go a long way to depend on who their quarterback is, whether it's a veteran free agent, like maybe a Mike White from the Jets, perhaps, just throwing the name out there, or it's a rookie quarterback that they pick up, second overall. We'll see what happens. But, they haven't really tipped their hand whether they're concerned or not at this point. I think their biggest concern is trying to figure out who their head coach is going to be. I don't think that head coach is going to be D'Amico Ryans, by the way. So, I want to kind of put that out there, too.
Yeah, I mean, and that would have been obviously a nice story. Him being a former Texan, would have been great to have him go back and coach. But, I also imagine there's probably a lot of other jobs for him to choose from. So, probably a little bit of maybe good option but bad time in there when it comes to D'Amico. And so You know, we talked a little bit about the Chiefs. Obviously, they got the Bengals coming up here this Sunday. Do you see Patrick Mahomes being able to overcome that ankle injury and lead the Chiefs to another AFC Championship win, or is it Joe Burrow's year yet again, getting a win in KC?
Well, I don't think it necessarily depends on Joe Burrow, to be honest. I think it depends on that running game. Yeah, you saw against the Buffalo Bills, the running game of Joe Mixon was just impeccable. They definitely controlled the game. And then defensively, they did work against the Buffalo Bills. They just definitely did because the Buffalo Bills can't run the football. And silly me, I actually went with the emotional tug and thinking that the Buffalo Bills would make it there to the Super Bowl, inspired by DeMar Hamlin. But, the reality is they can't run the football. And when your quarterback is your best running back, especially in the cold weather that they play in, it's not going to work. No. So, that's the biggest thing to me, the running games. If the Chiefs get a running game going, McKinnon, which I think he is very solid at Pacheco, they'll be just fine. And I think that's the biggest key to this game. And, to me, I think Patrick Mahomes definitely is going to be a little bit limited. Right. But, you double everybody. You double Kelsey and make everyone else beat you if I'm them. They're going to have some big plays in the passing game. But they're going to have to. And Juju can't make those happen because Juju is more an intermediate to short route guy. They're kind of a little slippery at times. But Marquez Valdez-Scantling will actually be a guy that I look forward to seeing being a key guy for a deep pass in this game.
Yeah, I mean, definitely gonna need, because of course that Bengals defense has kind of had Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs number a little bit as well. So shifting over to the NFC side of things, talking about defenses, you got two great defenses here with Philly and San Fran. How do you see that one going?
Honestly, it's going to be very interesting. At times, the 49ers can have trouble with offenses or quarterbacks that can actually move around a little bit, so that's going to be interesting as well. The biggest thing is going to be to contain, because if Hurts can beat you in the pocket. When he gets outside the pocket, you're giving them two options, whether to run or throw. So if they're able to keep him in the pocket, make a few things happen there, they'll be okay. They'll be solid, but there's still going to be some points scored by the Eagles. I mean, they've got good weapons. So you can't contain a lot of that. Flip side of that, the 49ers run the football. And, in the loss you saw by the Eagles against the Redskins, of course, they ran right at them. Yep. And the 49ers are a better running football team than the Commanders. I'm sorry, I call them the Redskins. But the Commanders are. So that'll be interesting just to see that kind of matchup there, to see if the Eagles can withstand against the run. I don't know if they can as much as like the Cowboys did, but we'll see what happens there, and it'll be interesting to see. If that happens and the 49ers get running football, then that means all heck's going to break loose because Kyle Shanahan's going to get in his bag and start, moving people around like you saw the game. You had Christian McCaffrey lined up a wide receiver sometimes, Debo in the backfield, and Debo at wide receiver, and McCaffrey in the backfield, and then you had George Kittle in the slot. You had Debo in the slot. I mean, all these different formations to run like similar plays, but just with different players. It's amazing to watch just those different pieces. It's almost like playing a video game or watching a video game being played, but it'll be an interesting game. I think it'll be a close game. If I had to pick one, I think the 49ers defense has just a different level of playmaker at every level. So that might be something to watch because I do like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I do like, all the different pieces that the Eagles have up front. Son Reddick, linebacker position, they do have some pieces there, but I don't think their linebacker core can step up to where the level that the 49ers can. And, we'll see what happens. But, it's going to be a tight matchup. I couldn't call a winner right now, to be honest.
Hey, man. So, no, before we let you go, of course, kind of in the spirit of predictions, couldn't quite make a call here, but if you had to give your Super Bowl winner prediction based on the four teams that are available now, who's your gut telling you to go with?
Well, I am a 49ers fan, so, I do want the 49ers to win. But, and I want to say the 49ers, but if I don't have to say that, if I don't pick the 49ers, I would say probably the Bengals are the team that could get it all the way and win the Super Bowl this year.
Hey, man, hard to bet against Joe Cool, man. Definitely. So, no, Mike, this has been great. Definitely appreciate you taking some time to join us here on Tuesday evening. Let the folks listening, let them know where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on social media at Mike Patton 82 on Twitter, at Mike Patton 82 on Twitter. It's MikePatton 82.
All right, man. Well, no, again, definitely appreciate you joining us. We'll have to, of course, have you back here at some point, either off season or next season, to talk through some more AFC South football, man. But until next time, we appreciate you taking the time out. We'll see you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No problem.
All right,
that
man.
was Mike Patton.
Yeah, thank you to Mike for taking some time to join us here. First time guest, but a lot of great insight there on the world that is the AFC South division, man. So some crazy storylines kind of moving around there. You think there's all those teams, I guess crazy enough, with the exception of the Jaguars, all of those teams in some type of flux in some way. So interesting to see how that plays out going into the offseason. And so I guess now, man, time to shift gears to some alternative football before we get into our championship game preview.
Yes, just one little mention here because people have to remember, in order for any team to get Sean Payton's services,
got to give up
the
some,
Saints still has his rights, and this would be more like that John Gruden, Tony Dungy thing back in the day. Maybe you can explain that.
Well, yeah, so essentially what happens, and you've even seen this not quite as much in the NBA, but also in the NBA, where a coach's rights are still held by the team that he either retired with or was most recently working for. So there's some type of compensation that has to be given up for that. More times than not, at least one draft pick. You can see coaches traded for each other. Does not happen very often. But in the case of John Gruden taking over for Tony Dungy, there was some compensation given to the Raiders by the Buccaneers in order to make that happen. So. Got to see that in some way, shape, or form with Sean Payton. He also, according to the rumors, wants like $20 to $25 million a year to coach, which sounds like a very high number, but also coaching salaries are not like a must to be disclosed. So, as quiet as it's kept, Bill Belichick is probably making somewhere in that, in that ballpark right now as well. So, definitely understand Sean wanting to get his money. Definitely understand teams that might not want to pay that. But, and also speaking of coaching searches, obviously Houston still looking for a coach. We kind of mentioned that with Mike. The Colts still looking for their coach. Sean Payton has had a couple different interviews now. Sounds like he might be the front runner for the Broncos. So a lot of moving parts on the NFL coaching front too.
Cardinals, he did interview with the Cardinals, it seemed, as well.
Well, yeah. So not only did he interview with the Cardinals, but I believe Brian Flores interviewed with the Cardinals last week.
And if we get a certain guest on possibly next week, then we might be able to talk more about that.
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely look forward to doing that. So
now, since we're getting to the end of the NFL season, alternative football, boy, I'll tell you this, XFL's riding up, and so is the USFL. So the spring football wars, it's getting interesting. First off, me and Josh here, we went to the Fan Fest, and there's many multiple ones. Example, the Arlington Renegades this Saturday is actually having one at the stadium there in Choctaw, and they get one thing that unfortunately we didn't get, is that's a pick a seat type of event.
Oh yeah, we didn't get to do that, but
though to be fair, I don't know how you would be for the dome for that. That would be very hectic in my opinion.
Yeah, that'd be a little bit chaotic, but they could probably
like it's not like, because I know the Blues did it for like a fan fest thing. They had like the stuff like on the seats, like you could just take it up in order to do it. I don't know if I doubt they would be able to do, because they would need a lot of like ushers and stuff, because you couldn't do that. Like I know San Antonio did something similar to that with the AAF at the Commanders. May they rest in peace. So first off, we went to the Fan Fest here at the Army. Let me show you a little bit of highlight video that the Bellhawks Twitter page showed here.
Here we go, we out, we coming to Fan Fest.
What need your help this morning?
Yep. My God.
That's what it is. What's up?
That was a pretty good again and a pretty very successful event actually.
Well, yeah.
Especially, thank goodness they held that at the Armory, because if it was held at a smaller space like even Ballpark Village, ooh.
Yeah, I could see Ballpark Village getting really overwhelmed by the amount of people that were there, man.
Yeah.
But the Armory was great. The entire, the guys that came out from the actual team, all the players, coaching staff, the folks that work with the team, everybody was great to the fans that were out there. You kind of start building that excitement up, man. You kind of start feeling the atmosphere that we actually are going to get, football back here in St. Louis, which I know, of course, is on the front of everybody's mind right now.
Though I will say there's been some, I wouldn't call it trash talking, but some misconceptions. I know Reggie Barlow, DC, at his fan event saying that the DC's fan base sets the tone for the XFL. No.
Right.
I get what they mean with the whole beer snake and all that stuff, but compared to St. Louis, just even though we're a little bit biased, like there was probably about a head count, I would say somewhere between 1,000 to 2,000 people there.
Yeah, pretty easily too.
Because, dear Lord, thank goodness I came early, because you joined me a little bit later. The parking lot for the Armory, and I do recommend, there's probably a watch party there along with a few other places like they were in 2020. The question, I don't know if they're going to have a partnership with all the Post restaurants like they did in 2020. They could. They should. Because of all certain around. The one thing I hope they do, because so far it's been like the St. Louis area and the county, downtown, which they should do. They also need to make sure they do the other counties, St. Charles County, on the east side of the river of the Mississippi in Illinois. And it just... and one thing though we can probably do, one thing I did see for the first home opener for, it looks like there's about 2,000 or less tickets left on at least the single game market for the home opener against the Renegades, and we're about 2 months from that, and that would be probably... I doubt we're going to do the whole fill the top thing like we did last week. I don't think it'll be for the first two. It'll probably be the last 3 home games.
Yeah, I would think they probably gauge it by the first couple games.
Because you got that 2-week window to okay, now we can open that up. And the question, I don't know what they will price them as, because those tickets were actually about $15 to $20. Now unfortunately, you have to account for inflation and all this and that.
Right. I imagine they probably won't be much more expensive than that. I would hope. But
I would put somewhere between $15 to $30.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. Unfortunately, though, they have to go. Hopefully, they do it to the box office, because honestly, Ticketmaster, I believe there's some Congress hearing about that, or some type of hearing to go when it deals with Ticketmaster, apparently.
Well, yeah, apparently, some charging of, excess amounts of fees, things like that, which, of course, we kind of know as the general public is going to probably happen to us in some way, shape, or form. But, there's some things being looked into about how they charge fees for their tickets versus how they actually are getting compensated or compensating the artists or performers, whoever is, at the arena for that day.
I do know that I was interested because Monday Night Raw is coming again to St. Louis in March, one of the weekend, I think after the second Battlehawk home game. And for a fee for that, even on a discounted ticket, was about $12 for the processing fee alone.
Yeah, that seems a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
now we're getting close now. Throughout this whole weekend, they actually cut down, though, for some reason, a little bit high, but they're probably going to fix that. Roster cuts to about 70 players for each squad.
Yep.
And we'll go down here for a little bit here with signings and also some cuts here. Also, I want to introduce this because the XFL, and not just the XFL, but also the USFL have a problem with this on their sites, USFL, Fox Sports, and XFL.com. The rosters have sometimes become inaccurate, and one I recommend is done by XFL Analysis, and he actually got his claim to fame during doing this for the AAF and did a pretty good job of it. Mike Mitchell and a lot other of the alternative media recommend using this Google Dot here, and it's very, very accurate here. And like it shows like the positions, the numbers as of now, and also the experience of any NFL or any type of league here down on the far right here. As you can see, other arena, AAF, CFL, XFL, NFL.
Nice.
So, yeah, I recommend using, we'll keep this up here a little bit. So, first one, let me go to Arlington here just to put this here. Because, as you can see, because I think the only way we found the roster numbers that we found, he looks through social media and like, oh, here we go. Because now they're actually starting when there's a player showing, they're actually putting his name and also number down. Because, see, he doesn't have a running back for DeMonte Tucker from Ohio. They also have the age and the height and the weight. So I recommend if you want to keep track of the rosters of whatever XFL team you root for, use the Google Docs on the XFL Analysis Twitter page that there's a link to.
Yep, for sure.
So, okay, first let's going alphabetically, Arlington Renegades, of course.
Right.
So, they first signed a Willie Taylor III linebacker, 6'4", 247, Eastern Kentucky, and also Washington State, 2022 NFL Draft, undrafted. They also released, in order to get there down to 70, defensive line Caleb Pregin, offensive line Mike Van Hoven. That name does sound familiar to me for some reason.
Van Hoven, man.
Defensive. They also released the defensive back Cody Tippett, the relation to the Patriots player, but we'll hear him soon again here in a moment because remember, this is like any type of waiver system. To cut someone, another team can also pick you up, and also trades are also a possibility too because believe it or not, there were also a few trades in 2020. One of them was, of course, late Brett Wallace, the offensive tackle from Arkansas, from Houston to St. Louis. May he rest in peace.
Sure.
So also released wide receiver Quentin Vazant, wide receiver Chad Williams, and defensive back Devon Renfro. Just to let you know, we're going by what I had originally. Then there were some signs say we'll get that to after I go through here. All right, DC Defenders. Tell you one thing, we'll see who. All their quarterbacks are right at the same age.
Well, and I mean, you got guys that, obviously Te'amu, not only has he, seen some practice squads, been on some active rosters in the NFL, he obviously was also part of XFL 2020. De'Aaron King, a guy that has, again, seen some time on practice squads in the NFL, had a pretty good college career. Same thing for Eric Dungy. So, you got guys that have had some experience, but also, like you said, at an age where they can still develop a little bit further, and again, kind of help, whether it's this roster or any other roster in the XFL, definitely kind of help them take that leap with the good quarterback play.
Okay. Yeah. Now, for DC Defenders, they actually signed a kicker, Matthew McCrane, 5'10", 165 out of K-State, first All-Big 12 2018 NFL Draft, undrafted, signed with the Cardinals, the Raiders, the Cardinals again, Steelers, then also had XFL experience back with the with the Guardians, and went on the Browns, the Cards again, and Eagles. Offensive line, Rod Taylor Jr., 6'3", 320, Ole Miss, NFL Draft 2018, 7th-round pick with the Bengals, then had a torn ACL, and then got drafted a little bit later, and now he's on the Defenders. Offensive line, Kyle Murphy, 6'6", 305, Stanford, first all-back 12, NFL Draft 2016, round 6, pick 200 by Packers active Elliott. By the Packers, then released. None was on the LA Rams practice squad, Houston, Texas practice squad, then the Saints. They released running back Shane Simpson, defensive back C.J. Anthony, offensive line Lawrence Keys. They also tried to trade him, but couldn't find a trade partner. Offensive line, Jalen Fly Sadler. Then they also signed Trent Hollis from the Roughnecks after they released him. Then they were also released, excuse me, punter Jake Skim, Daniel. Now, because of that, Daniel Willen is now the starting punter, and usually those special teams are usually pretty much safe after that. So it's all good there. So let's see here. Oh, yeah, Houston Roughnecks. Let me put it on here. Now, when it comes to the Houston Roughnecks, they kind of have a little bit of mixture here. I don't know why. That's somebody probably edit later, Nick Hawley. That was like one of the top returners because he was like the second receiver for the Roughnecks back in 2020. So he's going to be back in there, and then had a little bit with the LA Rams there. They got a pretty much stacked.
Yeah, a lot of bodies in that running back room from what we can tell.
And we'll get to, because believe it or not, the secondary battles for the Battlehawks are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, they now also too with the XFL they have what they call is reserve list. And that usually means that they are signed somewhere else, either signed a futures contract or signed somewhere else. And it's not just like USFL or otherwise. I'll mention that here in a moment. So on the reserve list, linebacker Ellis Brooks, offensive line James Stanley, and they also put quarterback C.J. Brewer on the reserve list as well. Like I said, they signed Nick Hawley from 2020. Linebacker Nate Winland, 6'1", 223 from Grandview University and Iowa Western Community College, NAIA player.
There you
go. NFL Draft 2022, undrafted, was with the Patriots. Offensive line, Sage Doxtator. Interesting name. 6'7", big guy, 350, New Mexico State. Started 47 of 51 games at New Mexico State. NFL Draft 22, undrafted, was with New Orleans.
Oh.
And then also Washington, 6'2", D2 All-American, All-Region, All-Conference. Didn't get TFL jumped here, here, there, everywhere. They released tight end Kyle Fortenberry, linebacker Kobe Quanson, safety Anquan Kincaid, defensive back Devin Harford, wide receiver Brandon Lewis, wide receiver Antonio Num, defensive line Oric Jones, actually a former 2020 Battlehawk, believe it or not. Linebacker Tavon Floyd, cornerback Kenneth George, defensive back Kevin Tolliver. That's a name I remember in 2020 as well. And offensive line Shaquille Morris. Now, Orlando Guardians, just a little FYI, there is supposed to be a press conference, I believe later this week with the XFL with Orlando. Actually, what that announcement is going to be, I have no idea. Some people speculate could it be something with the playoffs, be held in Orlando. I doubt it because so far it's only the Orlando. So this might be just a better introduction for the Orlando Guardians. Danny Garcia does live in Orlando, and that's also that's also the home of Disney and a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, kind of makes sense.
Yeah, so reserve list, they put offensive line Shan Pulse there. He's in the CFL, and defensive back D Virgin. Boy, dude.
Yeah, probably some jokes.
Yeah, he's going to probably had something weird done to him with that name back when he was a kid. Sorry about that. Signed defensive line Anthony Luke, 6'4", 260, San Diego State, JUCO All-American as well. NFL Draft 2020, undrafted, played with the Montreal Achiles in the CFL. See a trend here? Mm-hmm. Defensive end Anthony Knighton, 6'3", 248, Southern Illinois. Not that far from here. NFL Draft 2022, undrafted. Could not find anything about an NFL camp. Offensive line, Fred Lenina, 6'4", 313. Oregon State, NFL Draft 2018, undrafted, signed by the Browns. Was also part of the LA Wildcats. Then also got to play now formerly the Tampa Bay Bandits, now the Memphis Showboats this year, last year with the USFL. Wide receiver Javonte Payton, 6'1", 180, Tennessee, and this recent NFL Draft 22 unsigned, was with the Cardinals, but also was released. They released quarterback Mitch Kidd, wide receiver Aaron Dilworth, tight end Tommy Auger, tight end Vincent Hobbs, defensive line Justin Foster, offensive line, defensive line Joshua Frazier. You're getting a little bit here. If the one thing about the battle here is wide receiver for the Guardians here. Dantes Bird, I know that's a big favorite from 2020. I still think he'll probably be on that squad.
Well, it looks like they got a couple former
and
NFL
also Eli
vets,
Rogers as well.
Eli Rogers and Cody Latimer, guys that have been around NFL a couple times or so, at least as vets. And then of course kind of the same thing we mentioned about the running back room for Houston, pretty deep in that wide receiver room. Kind of gives you a little bit of insight into how they probably want to play.
And very deep on the defensive line front.
Yeah. So strike me as the type of team that wants to throw the ball, spread it out a little bit. But also, kind of keep things tight on defense.
Also, FYI, they had also a player on injured reserve, Armin Lloyd. Supposedly the rule goes after a while, if they're on injured reserve, they're released. They could join any other team in the future, apparently.
Okay.
But I think it depends on a case-by-case basis here. So 70 players, so they make it there. So it'll be interesting what is the cut-down date for the next team here. Where is... Oh, yes, San Antonio Brahmas. The first team, we go down there, ABC game for the Bellhawks. So this is the one I'm very interested in just because Hines Ward, black and gold. We'll get to that thing, too, in a moment for a different topic.
Yep.
It's going to be just quite interesting with San Antonio because, remember, this is probably a very similar fan base to St. Louis because they also won an NFL team, and they probably have deep hatred for someone we kind of figured, unfortunately, it's the owner of Ashley Baker's team.
Yeah.
So, to be frank, a lot of Cowboys fans don't like Jerry Jones. So.
Right.
So,
not their fault. But
Yeah.
I am interested to see what kind of play style Hines is going to go with.
From what I gathered, they're actually going more of a run.
And so I was a little torn because part of me feels like, of course, with
Even though
the
they got
teams
they got tall quarterbacks with Jack Cohen, Reed Sinnett, and Juwan Pass. So Juwan Pass, I'm assuming as of right now, is the front runner for that one.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about obviously the teams that Hines Ward was on. Obviously, he played receiver, but they were more kind of ground and pound type of teams.
Just a reminder for a release, they did just release Anthony Russo,
Okay.
Michigan State quarterback, which I don't know. He did kind of have some problems, and actually there are going to be a few trouble players we're going to talk about here in a moment.
Uh-oh.
Maybe not for the Brahmas, but here soon. Also, they off the reserve lists. They got some people because some of the playoff practice squads, they're now done now. Some of them are joining. One of them, of course, is offensive tackle Willie Wright. Then they also signed offensive line Derek Kelly, 6'5", 320, Florida State, NFL Draft 2019 undrafted. New Orleans was on their active for 2019, got released, and was on the Giants from 19 and 20. Then on the Jets practice squad this year, along with going back to New Orleans, then got released. It's amazing how many players I saw that went back to the same team they were originally signed to.
Yeah, well, and I think it's kind of interesting because it's not all the same coaching staff. So I guess, wanting some familiarity with the fans is probably my best guess as to why that is.
Yeah, so offensive guard Damian Mama, 6'3", USC, second all Pac-12, NFL Draft 2017, undrafted. Went to the Chiefs, was released, and got on the active roster for the Giants, Cowboys practice squad. This was probably someone that was on Coach Beck's radar. San Diego Fleet, then on the LA Wildcats, originally drafted, then got traded to the New York City Guardians, then played for the former Spring League with the Jousters, then also the Tampa Bay Bandits. Now they are the Memphis Showboats. Released wide receiver Cameron Lewis, wide receiver Toby Hines, tight end Trayvon Hards, offensive line Jonathan Izari, and defensive line Nick Ruby. Now, here's there also was a waiting person here because defensive back Sean Williams, and this is why you probably know this route too, Navy. Because, unfortunately, for the military schools like Navy, Army, and Air Force, I believe,
Yep.
there is they have like a minimum of service they have to do in order before they do anything with football. Though there was one Army player I remember in the draft a few years ago that got exempt. I just can't remember.
Yeah, I forget the exact situations that they allow the exemptions for, but some of those, service time requirements will get bypassed depending on the player's situation or, age, some things like that. So, can happen, but very unlikely that it does happen if they get those excused.
Yeah, so there was also a trade. Like I said, during the offseason, there's trades. It's kind of interesting that you get trade with somebody that all of them are same in the same facility in Arlington.
Right.
So they traded wide receiver Darius Robinson Jr. from the Roughnecks for Kerry Vincent from LSU. Now, cornerback Darius Robinson, 6 foot, 190, Oklahoma State NFL Draft 2020, was with Seattle. Then, okay, so this is the trouble player. Cornerback Darius Roberson that they got from the Roughnecks. This is the player that got in trouble for the Seahawks in 2020, sneaking a female into their hotel room. Remember that?
Yeah, not ideal.
And then, unfortunately, when he got played for the Raiders, he was arrested for street racing and invading police. Yeah.
Not what you want in terms of trying to continue your football career.
This person had to do something like this or the USFL in order to get back to him, because here's the thing, he already has 2 strikes, honestly.
Well, and I would imagine that we're probably going to see, as I would hope the XFL and even the USFL continues, in the coming years, you're probably going to see a lot more of these guys who either do something to kind of hurt their chances coming out of college before going to the draft, or guys who might, kind of make a mistake and kind of ruin their first NFL chance coming to either the XFL or USFL to try to boost their stock once again.
Yeah, then cornerback Kerry Vincent Jr., 5'10", 189, LSU, part of the 2019 national champions. Round 7 pick for the Broncos, got released then. He was signed off the reserve list, drafted by the Brahmas. I think it was the first draft, not the supplemental one. Now for the Seattle Sea Dragons. And of course, this one, it's either going to be, like we said with the quarterback battle, Ben DiNucci or Steve Montez.
Yeah, my guess would be DiNucci, but I could understand why they might want Montez. I feel like he might be a little bit more mobile.
What is interesting, because do you remember in 2020 that we had a player, Kenny Robinson Jr., that was draft eligible?
Yes.
They signed their new quarterback here, Harrison Frost of West Georgia. He's eligible for this upcoming NFL draft.
I wonder if he's trying to kind of do what Kenny Robinson did, put a little bit of good tape out there for the NFL scouts to see.
Yeah, so 6'1", 194, NFL draft eligible for this year. Started at Mercer first and went to West Georgia. Had 540 completions out of 880 passes. 6,730 passing yards, 50 TDs, and 18 interceptions, second team All-Gulf South, and also a 2-time Harlan Trophy finalist.
Okay, pretty accomplished.
Yes. Defensive back Bryce Thompson, 5'11", 190, Tennessee. A lot of Tennessee in this go-around, FYI. NFL Draft 2021, undrafted. I think that was wasn't that part of the, I don't know, what year was that big number 1 class that they had that turned out not to be that great?
It's blanking on me now, but I think you're talking about like the.
I wonder if he was part of that one.
It might have been. I can't remember the year off the top of my head now, but yeah, they had a pretty big recruiting class that got hyped up, and then sure enough, didn't accomplish much.
Yeah. Signed to New Orleans Saints, released in last year, but then got released this year in 2022. They also released wide receiver Amani Donadell, defensive line O'Brien Goodson, defensive line Howard Stevens. They also, because of the sign of Harrison Frost, they released quarterback Brian Lurkey, offensive line Jared Aiken, running back Ladarius Galloway, and defensive line Larry Tharp Jr. Now we go with our hometown and welcome back the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming since A.J. McCarron, and FYI, when he was signing a lot of Bama gear at that
Oh, yeah, you had, I didn't even know we had that many Bama fans here in St. Louis.
Oh, no, there's quite a lot. And
They were out.
And one guy that I met, that I introduced you to, that I went to school with, his mother went to Alabama, who was also a teacher. My history teacher.
It's a little bit deeper for him, right?
Yeah, and though the strangest thing that at the happy hour, people were having them sign Blues jerseys.
Yeah, I guess they were just trying to keep it all St. Louis, but yeah.
So, as you can see here, like, running back's a little bit kind of, oh, good, we have someone with a 0.
Hey,
Yeah, so
like
we
single
got, of course,
digits.
the local Brian Hill from the local guy, so far the only local player on the Battlehawks. Like, these three here, like, especially Mateo Durant here, like, tall but also fast, and he would have probably been on NFL squad if he didn't get injured.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, that's a good battle, because it'd be interesting, the battle for slot with Austin Pro, and also where is he, and Naquan Murray that I mentioned before.
Yep.
Tight end, that's interesting. There's only 4. Like, I hope the former Guardian Jake Sutherland stays in there. And then John Toff, that we drafted, former DC defender, I don't think he came in the camp.
Oh, okay.
So, and he hasn't signed with USFL. I think he retired or he's hurt or something, because as of right now,
he's not even on
the
any roster.
The center right now is either Christian Olmstead Findlay, and then on the latest social media, because when they did an offensive line thing, Steven Gonzalez, who's a guard that we saw at the happy hour, he was also taking snap at center.
Okay,
so,
yeah. So that, I mean, you would hope you probably add a little bit more depth at that position. But if you've also got guys on the roster that can kind of be interchangeable, that's kind of a good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah,
but
as of right now, between the two centers, only a 10-pound difference. Very interesting course. Defensive line, that's my favorite. But if you look here, the secondary for quarterback and safety, that's the battle that's going to be interesting. These are fine.
yeah, specialists are good. I think they locked in.
And also, too, we got the reserve list, Hizeki Grimsley. Brendan White, interesting, though. Because of that partnership we have in IFL, and don't be surprised that some of the people that got released here are in the Indoor Football League. He actually signed a deal with the defending IFL champions with the Massachusetts Pirates.
Okay, so just trying to get him some football in somewhere, man.
And who also signed quarterback Cardell Jones.
Okay.
So now they recently signed back Nathan Meters that they got from UCLA from the supplemental draft. He's off there. He was on the Titans practice squad once they were done. He went down there kind of similar to with Wes Sasson with Seattle in 2020.
Okay.
Then they released running back Darius Bradwell, wide receiver Bryce Nolan Neely, very hard name. Offensive line, Tyson Gray. Defensive back, Tarek Lewis. And defensive back, Jacoby Paparillion. Then we got the Vegas Vipers. This is the one that I have the biggest question mark about. Not on quarterback, because honestly, it's either going to be Brian Scott or Luis Perez.
Right.
Because see, Luis Perez just has that, like, somehow he's in there and just causes havoc. But Brian Scott has a lot of talent.
Well, it's a lot of talent, and then, of course, it's kind of that fine line, right? Do you want the more talented player? Do you want somebody who you have that's a little bit more experienced and kind of handle things in, the ideal way, so to speak? That would be a real interesting battle. Of course, I would always choose the talent, so I might lean a little bit more to Brian Scott. But, of course, again, you got a guy like Perez that's, again, been on some NFL practice squads, has seen some other leagues at different levels. Interesting battle for sure. And they got a big target, of course, with Martavis Bryant to throw to regardless. Same thing with Geronimo Allison, another guy that's been, on obviously the Green Bay Packers as well as a couple other NFL rosters. So they've got some big, targets to throw to. So I think whoever the quarterback is, they'll definitely be in good hands in terms of the amount of weapons they'll be able to use.
The one battle that's the more competitive for this team is linebacker, dear Lord.
Well, and then you got Big Vic Beasley, former Atlanta Falcon, kind of leading the way.
He better be in there.
I mean, that would be a hell of a pass rusher, to have on that side of the football. They got a lot of linebackers that they're going to have to kind of sort through, linebacker, edge rusher, that type of thing.
They're pretty thin at running back, actually, because of releases. They did actually release Matt Jones, former Battlehawk.
Yeah.
He's 30.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, they have a 30-year-old too with Rod Smith, Ohio State, but 6'3", 235.
he's going to be kind of more the power back.
Yeah,
if I had to guess. Now, I think running back, though, especially at any level, is probably the easiest position to find somebody serviceable.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that being something they address a little bit later.
Expect this sneaky guy here. I expect DeAndre Torrey from North Texas to be kind of like a Darren Sproles type, in my opinion.
Yeah, they'll probably use him in a couple different ways in that offense.
Now, they had a reserve. They put defensive back Kevin McGill on reserve. They signed wide receiver Brian Burt, 5'11", 194 from Fresno State, NFL draft 2019, undrafted the Raiders. Now, the Vipers have an injury problem. They put 2 people on IR. Running back Taylor Porter pulled hamstring. That's why it's right there. There's only 3. And then also Roderick Henderson, foot. Then, like I said, released Matt Jones, wide receiver Isaiah Macklin, offensive line Ben Petrella, and tight end Jordan Wilson. Then that was what I had yesterday. Then yesterday morning. Then came the evening and they signed more because also too today is also free agent tryouts for the XFL.
Yeah.
So Vegas signed wide receiver Jerome Allison, 6'3", 202 pounds, Illinois. NFL draft undrafted was with the Packers from 16 to 19. The Lions from 2021. Falcons practice squad has 89 receptions, 1,045 receiving yards, 6 touchdowns in the NFL. Offensive line, defensive line, Kaylee McKenzie, 6'3", 326 pounds, Tennessee. A lot of Tennessee, like I said. NFL Draft 2018, round 6, pick 198 with the Chiefs. Was with the Chiefs in 2018, then went to the Seahawks practice squad, then was with the XFL with the originally drafted to the DC Defenders, then got traded to the LA Wildcats, then was in the Seahawks practice squad in 2020, then was on the Astros for the Bengals, and recently this year with the Ravens active and practice squad. Now, we got a new lineman for St. Louis. Thank you. Dallas Warmack. Believe it or not, this is actually, I should have mentioned to Patton, brother of Chance Warmack.
I was going to say, that name definitely sounds familiar.
Yep, that's his brother. And believe it or not, when he got in the NFL, his brother got some hype. Originally went to Alabama, but then transferred to Oregon. 6'2", 310, all-packed, third team, NFL Draft 2020, NFL Draft signed with the Browns, then actually played with the Bandits, then now he's here. So,
I mean, hey.
That's somebody I'll see that is in a battle for the guard spot that's very competitive right now with the Battlehawks.
Yeah, and I mean, they, again, from what we know about Anthony Beckton, how he probably wants to play, offensive line was going to be important regardless, but I think not only establishing the run, but getting some protection for AJ.
Here's the thing, Dallas is only 22 years old.
Hey, so definitely a nice building block for somebody that you can keep on the roster moving forward.
So, well, I think why did I have 22? I should be like 21 or 22. My fault on that. Then there were some, excuse me, then Arden signed cornerback Nashar Greer, 6'2", 201, Wake Forest, second team All-CC honorable. Then had put on the reserve list tight end Dominic Wood Anderson and wide receiver Kamon Brown, though he signed future deals. Seattle running back Kamon Harris, 5'10", 209, Miami NFL Draft 2022 undrafted. Had an injury problem during his last part of the season for Miami. Didn't get into a mini camp, but did have a trial with the Panthers later in the season. Wide receiver Fred Brown, 6'1", 195, Mississippi State, draft 2017, undrafted, was signed by the Colts, was on their practice squad, then on the Rams practice squad, then was on the Denver Broncos for 2 years on their active, and then on the most recently the Titans practice squad. Defensive tackle Joai Johnson, 6', 316, Iowa State, NFL draft undrafted 2020. Then couldn't find anything else in where he's been. So, defensive line Owen Abasiui, 6', 309, Hampton University, NFL draft 2018, Arizona Cardinals. Then got released and was actually part of the Arizona Hotshots for the AAF. then also was part of the Fan Control Football League with the Glacier Boys.
There we go.
So, yeah, believe it or not, there will be another season of Fan Control Football, of course. That's a little bit more hard to explain on here how that goes, actually.
Yeah. Kind of hard to watch at times, too.
Yeah.
That's another
Then for the Houston Roughnecks, wide receiver Tavon Salter, 6 foot, 188, mid-Tennessee State, NFL Draft 2020. Falcons undrafted, Spring League 2021 with the Conquerors. Then they also released wide receiver Chris Booker. That's all for the XFL signings and stuff. Like, I do know The Rock was praising the St. Louis for the happy hour and a few things, and we're getting closer. Now to the wars here. USFL put out a commercial on Fox, as they should, and they called something not some cheap Hollywood knockoff. I kind of, where is that going to? Though, I kind of funny they make that joke since last year they basically were just a studio program in Birmingham.
Right.
Let me be clear, I will take shots on both leagues. Even though we are XFL Central here in St. Louis, I am not going to be a biased type person. So, the one thing, let me bring up to that there real quick, because it's kind of interesting, because when it comes to the two leagues here, USFL, Fox, they advertise it. ABC, they advertise ESPN for the XFL. NBC broadcast the USFL games. You know how much they have promoted it? You noticed that too, huh?
Yeah,
0.
so I picked up on this this weekend because, of course, watching the football for the NFL playoffs across the different broadcast networks, during that Chiefs-Jaguars game, which, of course, was on NBC, you would definitely have thought that USFL, that would have been a perfect time to throw in some advertisement, not only because it's football, but because that's also usually the same time slot that a lot of those USFL games take place. So would have made sense. But, of course, to the point you made, you saw a lot of that promotion for the USFL on Fox. Same thing for the XFL on ABC and ESPN. So, maybe they're leaning a little bit more into it on Fox because that might be the bulk of where those games are played, but probably not ideal if you are, kind of leaning on your broadcast part of the promotion.
The big problem I have is because NBC paid for it.
Right.
So it's like, why aren't you advertising? And I talked to some people that have done USFL shows, and they're like, they're throwing their hands up when it comes to NBC because they still don't understand why they're not doing that. Because they did the kind of similar thing last year with NBC. So it's like, NBC, you paid for the rights. Why not advertise it?
Yeah, I think NBC is kind of weird in the sense that
I know that NBC does have some stuff that The Rock and also things with $7 like Young Rock and all that stuff. Entertaining show, though. I wonder if this might be the last season,
right?
Because for some reason they just put shows on a Friday night. It's just that even though if it's good or bad, it's like we want to get rid of it.
Yeah. It's usually not as many viewers for the Friday night programming.
Yeah,
but
though we'll see when it comes with the TV schedules. Like there were quite a few Peacock exclusive games, which some people did not like.
No, because of course you gotta have to go pay for people.
Speaking with USFL, there was another rebranding when it comes to the Pittsburgh Maulers here. I'll do it here. They changed their colors.
There you go.
Here's Coach New Ray Horton.
I guess when you asked the question, the first word that came in is Pittsburgh appropriate. It falls in line with what Pittsburgh expects and has modeled. So, great decision.
So, if people are wondering, Pittsburgh appropriate, because of all the pro teams, what is their colors?
Black and yellow.
Correct. I doubt they're going to get an NBA team, so I don't think they're going.
Nah, that surprised me if they got an NBA team.
So if that did, they would probably. Though the question, I don't know if Pittsburgh got, because St. Louis got a pickleball team with the whole new popular thing. I don't know if they're black and gold. If they ever do get one, I wouldn't be surprised if they did get one. About everyone's probably going to get a pickleball team. Now, another thing that happened too is that the USFL is going to announce their two other hubs that we said what was rumored here 2 to 3 weeks ago. One, of course, is here we go with Tony Pollard here in Detroit. The Michigan Panthers will play their home games at Detroit's Ford Field in 2023 as one of the second-year hubs. It looks like it's still being discussed that they will have their practices in eastern Michigan. And it looks like the other team joining will be the Philadelphia Stars. Battlehawk draft pick Channing Stripling, who decided not to be part of the Battlehawks, went back to the Philadelphia Stars, kind of posted a quote tweet about this. And he's from Michigan. He went to Michigan. So it looks like it will be the Michigan Panthers and the Philadelphia Stars. And then also they will have a press conference there on Thursday. There will also be a press conference tomorrow in Canton, which will announce the hub for both the other two teams, for the New Jersey Generals and the newly colored Pittsburgh Maulers. So they're going with, though technically they're kind of falling short of what the plan was. They were supposed to have half their teams in their markets this year, so they only got 3 of the 4. Not bad, but still falling under. I'm still curious because they've done this before, if any of the teams will be, because they said the Tampa Bay Bandits were going to be in hiatus for this year. So, because the XFL has Houston, does that mean the Gamblers, I'm not saying they would, they could change back to into the
possibility.
So, I don't expect any expansion for year 3, 4. No, you need to play in your home markets first for 1 year or 2 before you decide that.
Yeah, definitely need to give it some time in those home markets before trying to open it up for sure.
Yeah, so quick thing too, just out of USFL here, Mizzou got 2 transfer quarterbacks, a walk-on community college, a quarterback, 6 foot, 200 pounds, a little bit of a string bean to me.
Right.
Then also a transfer, Miami quarterback Jake Garcia. Freddie Cook, you got competition.
Yeah, and maybe that'll be the thing that Brady needs.
Well,
maybe
he's got a coach now. Remember that. Kirby Kellemore's brother. Yeah. Though, doesn't Kellemore no longer have a job, or does he still have a job?
No, he still has his job with the Cowboys. Now, there was some talk about him being a potential head coaching candidate. I don't know that I would go that far with my head coaching hire, but good offensive coordinator nonetheless.
All right, then. USFL signings, mostly re-signs here. For example, Birmingham Sounders defending champions, re-signed cornerback Brian Allen from Utah. Houston Gamblers signed a new long snapper, Cole Musa. That name should sound familiar for those from Alabama. Part of the national championship, 6'1", 247, 2017 NFL was undrafted, was with the Birmingham Iron with the AAF. Was active for the Chargers, then got injured, then on IR, then got released, so now he's here. Yeah. So, long snappers, don't underestimate. Those are very important. Though I'm curious, when we ask Ashley, what about the long snapper position for the Cowboys, I wonder.
Yeah.
Linebacker Colin Tolson, 6 foot 235, University of Illinois, NFL Draft 2022, undrafted, was signed by the Carolina Panthers, was released. Memphis Showboats re-signed all USFL lineman Jaron Jones from Notre Dame. Cornerback Troy Warner, 6'1", 200 pounds, BYU, NFL Draft 2021. Undrafted, signed with the LA Rams, was released, and was on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad. Then they also released safety Anthony Suroff from Rutgers. Interesting enough, this player actually is very interested with 3 XFL teams, with Vegas, Seattle, and our Battlehawks.
Okay.
So that hasn't been signed anywhere, so that's something to keep in mind for next week. Michigan Panthers re-signed popular wide receiver Ishmael Hyman from James Madison.
Okay.
New Jersey Generals signed cornerback Miko Dotson, 5'11", 187, Florida State, NFL Draft 2022, undrafted, didn't get signed to any NFL team, so this is perfect for him. Re-signed known punter in the NFL, Brock Miller.
Okay.
That's a name you probably recognize.
Yep.
New Orleans Breakers. They need to sign some people because they have the lowest amount.
Well, and I was going to say, I feel like a lot of the guys that we hear going to other leagues from the USFL, a lot of them have come from the Breakers.
Oh, yeah. I'll explain that here in a moment because I have a rumored date for the USFL draft.
There we go.
Yeah, so cornerback Josh Valentine Turner, 6 foot, 188, FIU, Honorable Conference USA 2022 NFL Draft Undrafted was with the Seattle Seahawks, got released. Safety Duron Racket Straw, 6'2", 200 pounds, Colorado Tulane NFL Draft 2022 Undrafted. Didn't get signed anywhere from what I can find. Defensive tackle Chris Richardson, 6'3", 298, UTEP. NFL Draft 2022 Undrafted, All Conference USA. Didn't get signed from where I can find. Because even though not all this information, if they did get signed somewhere, I couldn't find it on the internet whatsoever. Philadelphia Stars signed running back Jordan Scarlett from Florida. That name did sound familiar to me. NFL Draft 2019, 5th round pick, 154 from the Panthers. Played him from 19, was on the 20 roster for the Panthers for the practice squad, active roster for the Dolphins, then was on the practice squads this year for the Montreal Alouettes and the Edmonton Oaks. Then you got outside linebacker Jordan Moore re-signed from the University of San Antonio. Then they released offensive line Clay Lagarde Marek, linebacker Avery Roberts from Oregon State. Then the Maulers, they re-signed after getting their new colors, re-signed their popular wide receiver Bailey Gaither, popular target from San Jose State. Then rumor is that the USFL draft will be February 21st. Now, supposedly, I think Coach Horton there said that the limit's going to be about 70 players for training camp when it starts here in March. The thing is, though, like I said, a lot of them are close to 70, so it's going to be kind of interesting how many rounds, if it's going to be kind of similar to, like, the supplemental draft, like there's rounds but only, like, one team plays because there's a limit.
Oh, yeah, I could
Because
see that.
I still see that we got a few weeks till the draft here, that the Breakers, because they only have about, if I saw the count correctly, close to about 50 players. So they got a lot to catch up on.
Yeah, a lot of room to cover.
So that's all for the alternative football news, but it's going to get really interesting here now that they have the 4 hubs.
Countdown is definitely going to be on, too, for the XFL season, man.
Yeah, and we already got a few, need to get more. I already got a few we got Mike Mitchell for win the 2 DC games. It looks like I got someone when we faced the Roughnecks, and I got someone facing for the first home game with the Arlington Renegades. San Antonio and Vegas is kind of hard, I will admit.
Yeah, definitely tough.
But we'll have some analysts come here to break down the matchups and all that stuff, because this is going to get very interesting when it comes to matchups. And some of them that I got also cover the USFL, so that we'll talk about that and do some double duty there here in the next few months. Cool. So that's about it. It's all quiet. We're probably not going to talk anything high school until about midsummer.
Yeah, I mean, we might have a couple, big transfers, or I guess,
because
signing days done now. So you might have some late commits and some movement with folks moving around based on how the transfer portal shakes out when it's all said and done. But
I can't wait for the next round of rules for the transfer portal, because I know it got hectic, and even the NCAA. Okay, we need to change some stuff.
Right. So definitely gonna have some coaches stepping in on that one. Yeah,
and also, before we do the final part here, just to take out of football, congratulations to third baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals finally make it to the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Yes, Scott Rowland, man, congratulations. Named to the Baseball Hall of Fame today. Voted in 76.3% of the vote, I believe, is what I saw.
The Baseball Hall of Fame voting, they need to fix that and also kick out some voters, especially those that post either a voteless ballot or some crap votes that.
Well, and let's be real. This obviously I don't want to get too far off topic, but a lot of the baseball writers, they don't want to vote for steroid era guys,
or think that they're high of moral character.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. If the majority of the league was using it at that time, then the guys who excelled during that time should still get the same accomplishments as anybody else that was clean, in my opinion, because if they are being punished as though the rest of their league mates were not punished, kind of I don't know. Like, I use Barry Bonds as the example. you could take away whatever years you think Barry Bonds was using steroids. He's still a Hall of Fame baseball player.
Here's the thing too that I'll say. Then we'll get out of it here, and then we'll mention someone that in St. Louis area that should get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame this year. Yeah. Let's see. I believe that Pete Rose should get into Hall of Fame, especially if a known cheater known as Alex Rodriguez gets in, who got caught for how many times that cheated a game with so many, including that one thing I know Ray Lewis was a part of, apparently.
Yeah.
It's hypocritical you let a known cheater that cheated multiple times in 2 different organizations, part of once with the Rangers and then 2 times with the Yankees.
Well, and I'll even take it a step further on your Pete Rose point. I mean, the whole thing has been about his gambling or gambling on the league. Gambling is legal now in a lot of states. In a lot of states that house baseball teams.
He actually put out a bet.
So I think, Pete Rose, you can't, you got your all-time home run leader, your all-time hits leader. Neither one of them are in the Hall of Fame. Something's wrong. Just saying.
Yeah. So, also, too, hopefully the good luck for St. Louis Rams wide receiver Torrey Holt to get in.
Yes.
It will be tough.
It's going to be tough.
It's either going to be him or Reggie Wayne.
Yeah, one of the two, man. I'm definitely, excited to see if Torrey can get in. Obviously, greatest show on turf,
if
guys.
Somehow Andre Johnson, he's the dark horse when it comes to the wide receivers.
Andre's got time. He's got time.
Yeah,
he's got time on his side.
Because the other two, they have a ring.
Yeah.
Now we have about 10 minutes left. Now we go with our own type of thing. What about the conference games here?
Yeah, man. You got 2 pretty interesting championship games here this weekend. NFC game is going to be first on Fox, 2 o'clock p.m. here Central Standard Time. San Francisco 49ers are going to Philadelphia to the Link, play the Eagles. Betting-wise, Philadelphia is still 2.5-point favorites, according to Vegas. I can't pick against San Fran. As much as I would love to see that Eagles team, rise up at home, it'd be fun for their fans. Fun, especially for that city, given, everything that played out with, the Phillies, as we kind of mentioned in baseball before. Would be great for Philly, that city, I get it.
It also would be good for Robert Quinn for playing all those crap years.
I mean, yeah, you got Robert Quinn that they traded for.
And then, honestly, it would help Ndamukong Suh's Hall of Fame candidacy to get another Super Bowl ring, to be quite honest.
Quinn and Ndamukong Suh, you got guys like Lane Johnson on that offensive line. Fletcher Cox is another veteran that's been around for a while. Guys like that, it'd be great for them to win.
Though I would not be surprised if Suh retired after this year, to be quite frank.
Yeah, I mean, he was already kind of throwing his name in the hat to be like the Nebraska coach, so I would think that he's probably using this as
he would do well there.
Yeah, any coaching role, I would trust in Ndamukong Suh. But I think this 49ers defense, man, every bit of legit. We saw it on Sunday. Now, granted, Dallas's offense, you can say they were number 1 in the league. Philly's offense, I think, is a little bit of a slight step up. But, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, Dre Greenlaw. You got so many guys on that 49ers team, especially in the front 7, where I just think, it's going to be a lot harder on Jalen Hurts in that offense to move the ball than what people probably realize.
Say it was kind of funny seeing John Lynch being all so excited. Looks like he was almost looked like he was going to get ready to suit back up and go on the field.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was excited at the outcome.
I expect he probably could still hit.
I don't think that he probably could be 60 years old and still come and clean your clock one time, man. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think if I had to put a prediction on this game, I would go 49ers 24, Eagles 20. I do think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think both of these defenses kind of get.
This is going to be a most defensive game.
Yeah, I think both defenses kind of get after it, especially
unless weird
early
things
on.
happen, which it could.
Yeah. These things are definitely unpredictable. I do want to say, though, I obviously prediction is for the 49ers to win. At some point, you would think that this Brock Purdy thing falls apart. I don't know if it's Sunday, but he's thrown some near interceptions in a lot of these games. He's had some, kind of rookie moments, even though they've been very, very minor and very, very far between. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw a little bit of a rough quarter, rough half out of him at some point in this game too. But I think 49ers, they got enough talent on both sides of the ball to be able to overcome that. Now, of course, you also have to be mindful of Christian McCaffrey. He's got a calf injury. He was kind of working out on the sideline on Sunday. They said he's going to play. I don't doubt that at all, but something to keep an eye on. You definitely don't want to lose him to
Debo,
injury.
so we're all good there.
Well, and they also got Elijah Mitchell back from injury as well. So they've got guys to to get the ball to.
Now, like I said, Niners, it would be. Now we go to the AFC Championship. Like I said before earlier in the show, fifth straight year in KC.
Fifth straight year in KC.
That reminds me, what is the weather supposed to be here? Because it's quite similar to St. Louis.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might be kind of snowy or at least very cold come Sunday.
Yeah.
Based on the winter weather we're supposed to get here in St. Louis this
for
week.
St. Louis, it's supposed to be high of 40, low of 22, 40% chance of snow. But usually for KC, there's a higher chance of snowies.
Yeah, and so, for KC, man, I think obviously, the talk is going to be about, how healthy Patrick Mahomes is. I think he knows, and Ashley kind of alluded to this earlier, he knows that there is a different mindset and there is a different level of play that his team is going to have with him on the field versus him being off the field. High ankle sprain, though, I do think, that's not I get the injury one week and I'm playing, very comfortable the next week.
It's
That's
just a
gonna
regular high ankle sprain, or was it a rolled-up ankle?
Well, so from the play that happened during the game, he kind of had his ankle rolled on to where he was facing this way, got rolled on him from the back. I don't know, man. He played, through it at the end. But I think they mentioned it on the Fox broadcast as well. Played through it, probably felt fine in the moment. After the game, though, that thing's going to be on fire. So I don't know what they're going to have to do to make sure that he's able to play without feeling that too much. But I think that's going to be a problem for the Chiefs. Now, Mahomes is still one of the best passers we've ever seen, just, being limited to being in the pocket. But the Cincinnati Bengals defense has also kind of had his number a little bit these last three matchups. Like I said, Cincinnati, last three games they've played against Kansas City, they beaten them all three times, and two of those being at Arrowhead.
Yeah. So, it would be interesting to see what happened with the Chiefs fan base if they failed to go to the Super Bowl and lose at Arrowhead 2 straight years. How crazy that! Because here's the thing: the door is open, but pretty soon that door is going to close for the Chiefs.
Well, and then you also got to start to think about, they traded Tyreek Hill last offseason. And obviously they, turned that into some good draft picks they were able to use. But you start to wonder, of course, as Kelsey also starts to creep up into his 30s, do you have enough on offense around Mahomes? Juju has been okay. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has been okay, but these guys aren't world beaters.
They do kind of need to get some new wide receiver weapons after this year. That's just
you would think that they probably get, some more weapons in that building. I don't, we've heard the Cardinals may look to trade DeAndre Hopkins. I'm sure the Chiefs would love to get into that mix. Maybe they don't swing that high, but they got to do something. And right now, I think you couple that with the way, again, Joe Burrow, man, and just the confidence he puts or instills in his team, and I can't pick against Joe Burrow right now. As much as I would love to also take the Chiefs at home being underdogs, I think the Bengals do pull this out, and I'm calling it now. Bengals 49ers Super Bowl, man. This was not my pick at the beginning of the playoffs. I said Chiefs and 49ers. I think the Bengals, though, they are just a little bit too much right now.
Yeah.
A little bit too much.
Though the Bengals have been waiting for so long. Aren't they one of the few teams that haven't won a Super Bowl for their franchise?
The Bengals, yes. So I think if they go to the Super Bowl this year, this is only their third Super Bowl appearance. Obviously, second one in a row it would be. I think the best story either way would either be the Bengals winning and kind of ending that drought, or if you see Patrick Mahomes go into some sort of Superman mode and on this bad ankle not only beat Cincinnati, but then go pull off another Super Bowl win after kind of all that I mentioned about trading Tyreek Hill and all of that. being able to kind of get back to the mountaintop again. I think either of those storylines would be the best. But then you also got Brock Purdy on the other side being, Mr. Irrelevant winning the Super Bowl. It would be pretty incredible as well.
And if they do win the Super Bowl, the Niners, I can guarantee you the movie about Brock Purdy will be called Mr. Irrelevant.
Oh, we could probably just go ahead and put that out now. Like, put the trailer on YouTube, say, hey, coming in 2033, 2034, something like that. The Brock Purdy movie is going to have written itself by then.
Yeah, so that'll be it for tonight's edition of That's Football. Next week, we're actually going to have a colleague of ours from the In the Zone Network, Rodney Davis, on with us.
Yeah, man, we're going to be a little bit of a three-man show next week.
Me and Rodney, probably discuss possible Super Bowl matchups. FYI, we will not discuss the Pro Bowl games. That is the most pointless thing to ever talk about here in the sport of football.
Nah, we won't do that.
Yeah.
Won't do that.
So, because this weekend we got the two games, of course, me and Rodney's probably thing we're happy for this week. Saturday night, the Royal Rumble finally comes.
Hey, look, this is that prime time for the WWE calendar, man. So
Yeah.
I know that's going to be exciting for the city as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun, and also the Royal Rumble's in San Antonio.
There you go. Shout out to
So
the
if you wanna
Dome
see
Brothers.
Though they also did have I believe, a sold-out game for the Spurs, I think, a few weeks ago.
Yeah, they actually set the NBA attendance record with that game against the Warriors. Now, they ended up losing that game by, I believe, 30-plus points, but attendance record nonetheless.
Yeah, because they do have their own stadium. That was just a special event.
Yeah, they just played it at the
'Cause that
Alamo
was their
Dome.
old stadium before.
Yeah, played at the Alamo Dome as like a throwback type of thing.
So, yeah. Actually, NBA, I think you could probably do that for the Dome, maybe in St. Louis for a pop.
I mean, we had the McDonald's All-American game back in '95. We've had preseason games in St. Louis before. Just come back. NBA. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I know it's a football podcast, but come on.
Just have the Washington and then Boston play, and that.
There you go. Brad Beal, Jason Tatum.
All right.
Stamp it.
All right, that'll be all for us tomorrow. See you.
Enough free ideas for you professional leagues.
Yeah. So
Talk to y'all.